Commissioner Goodell sitting with some Irish rugby players. By the way, walking through Trinity College yesterday, I just happened upon a rugby game. My jaw dropped watching these dudes pummel each other. No helmets, no pads.
Why don't you tell everybody what they told you they refer to American football as?
I don't think I can use that word.
Next on Rugby Wrap-Up's MLR Weekly, Major League Rugby's Chief Revenue Officer, Lucas Reid, John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, the College Rugby Corner with Pat Clifton of the College Rugby Show, and Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. Rugby Wrap-Up's MLR Weekly brought to you by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, New York City, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle.
There is a massive responsibility on the 23 that are privileged enough to step out on that field today.
Let's get it all started with our recurring segment, Rugby Morning's Coffee Break with John Fitzpatrick, calling in from the Southland, the greater Los Angeles area. John, welcome back to MLR Weekly.
Yeah, Matt, let's start. How about Super Rugby's America? Yeah, they're expanding. Matt, check out this team name. So Argentina's entering another professional team into the competition. The capybaras, some type of big giant rodent or something like that.
Sure.
But Matt, our neighbors down south don't seem to be worrying about money issues and other nations throwing them the bone. They're going down there. They're making it work. They're expanding. Matt, let's figure this out here. Me and you, the two of us together. I've got hair, you don't, but two brains, we can put this together. Why can't MLR and Super Rugby Americas get a little friendly competition going?
I've been saying that for since the inception of Super Rugby Americas. And,
right, steal my idea. That's classic.
Okay, we can go back and find the tape if you want.
Johnny, roll it.
But you know what? It doesn't matter. I'll give you credit because, as Harry Truman said, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care who gets the credit. And obviously, the LA thing in you is already overtaking your common sense and your East Coast sensibilities. So with that, I agree with you. Let's see if we can get some synergy there. It maybe even like how about a championship or an all-star game of all-stars of MLR all-stars versus the Super Rugby America's all-stars, and maybe we get it going. Oh, John, I wanted to ask you something, John. I wanted to ask you, what did you think? What do you think of what are the kids on the street? What's your ear to the ground about the TRN Plus, the Rugby Network, that they come out with a statement, and now it's going to be a TRN Plus? Explain and tell me what the kids are saying.
Well, Matt, I'm sure that's a question you can ask Lucas Reid. I passed him in the green room, of course, MLR's new business guy there. But, Matt, yeah, ever since Major League Rugby signed that broadcast deal with ESPN Plus to stream all of Major League Rugby games, seems like a lot of people dropped the TRN Plus platform from their, regular tune-in to watch all MLR action. Unfortunately, yeah, TRN Plus pulling the plug there. Matt, ask that question to Lucas, because I'd like to know what's going on with it.
I don't know, so I'm going to ask Lucas about that.
You are quite the journalist, Matt.
Well, honesty, guy. That's what I go with. Honesty. That's all I do. Okay? Until I have to lie, and then I lie. So get off my back already. What else you got?
Yeah, Matt, I want to bring something up here. Obviously, I know you're going to talk to Bryan Ray about this in a little bit, but kudos, 3 cheers to Rugby Canada women for fabulous effort at the Rugby World Cup coming up just a little bit short against the Red Roses. But speaking of overseas here, Matt, I don't know if you caught this news over the weekend. Premiership Rugby action here. Bristol Bears, our guy, AJ McGinty, fly half there. Looks like he suffered a season-ending injury. It's looking like the Achilles. That is definitely a long recovery process, particularly a player, with a little bit of tread on the tires, so to speak. But Matt, his wife's family's from the Atlanta region. Why not come back stateside and tune up and run up to Rugby World Cup 27 down in Australia? He plays for a Major League Rugby team there. How cool would that be to have AJ McGinty playing for a Major League Rugby team? Matt, even you, a cynic like you, could find some appreciation in that.
That's libel right there. That's just inflammatory and
Sue me.
nonsensical.
Sue me.
It's farcical.
Answer the question.
I think it would be nice. I think it would be great. I don't think it'll happen. I think that he'll stay there. He'll rehab. And if he rehabs sufficiently and comes back, he'll get offered a contract over there. Because he's a talent. He's a talent. And, he'll be 37, and he's in impeccable condition. They're all fine-tuned, well-oiled machines now. And you look at some of these fly-halves, they can play until they're 40. Right, and be effective until they're 40. It's not like Aaron Rodgers coming back and playing behind the Jets' defensive line and hoping that he's going to recapture some of the glory. No, it's not that. But either way, it's a brutal injury for AJ. I feel for him. When I heard the news, I was instantly gutted. He's a great guy. He's been a team player for Team USA, literally off the pitch, carrying dummies and the water jugs and all that crap that goes into being a part of a national team, and then going back and playing, in the Premiership at a decent salary and high profile. So you hate to see that kind of injury, and I hope he comes back, because I hope that's not the way he goes out, so he can go out on his own terms.
But you didn't really answer the question. In fact, you kind of poo-pooed the idea of AJ McGinty playing in MLR. So Matt, I don't
think it's a reality. I basically said that at the start. If you listen.
I don't listen to folks from Buffalo. I just don't.
I'm not from Buffalo, so obviously you haven't listened. I'm Jersey City white trash. I'm urban white trash. But I went to Buffalo to get a little bit nicer. Okay? All right. Well, anything else, John?
No, Matt, that's it. Let's get out of here on a good note, then. I'll actually try and be nice to you. I appreciate you having me on the show again, Matt.
All right, your mic is muted. His mic is muted, ladies and gentlemen. And on that note, I want to thank John Fitzpatrick, the silent John Fitzpatrick. And we'll be right back with Lucas Reid, the Chief Revenue Officer of MLR, after this.
Digs like a demented mole there.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
And we are back with Mr. Lucas Reid, the Chief Revenue Officer of the MLR. Well, Lucas, welcome to MLR Weekly.
Thanks for having me.
Before we continue, let me give you some background for fans so they can grasp who you are. You're Canadian, which means you're automatically likable. And
yes, sir.
You worked for more than a decade at the NHL before leaving that successful professional sports league in the United States for the MLR. Are you certifiably insane?
My wife would probably put me in that category, yeah.
Okay, because MLR revenue has been an oxymoron, and that's two words that don't go together for those of you out there that don't get it. And I'm looking at you, John Bradshaw Layfield of the Rugby Odds. How do we follow that?
No, I think, listen, I've always kind of been excited about building. It was really appealing to me to get into the league and into the sport on the trajectory line that we're on right now. I mean, with the World Cup in 31, we have a really committed group of owners that are grinding every day, just like league office staff and staff at the team level. And hopefully we can turn the word revenue in MLR, into a more appealing phrase.
How are you going to bring revenue into the MLR?
Sometimes you think there's a magic wand, right, when it comes to revenue and producing revenue. And really, I think what my job is to lead a really, really good and talented group of people in improving our product, right? Like we're in the business of entertainment, and I think you and I have spoke about this offline before. It's sports and entertainment, and I think a lot of times we put the sport first when entertainment has to come first at times, especially when you're discussing revenue. And related to that, we're selling a product, right, in a really, really crowded sports and entertainment space in the U.S., being the number one market globally. And so we have to improve what our product looks like on TV. And we have to improve the fan engagement entertainment aspect in venue. And
you just became a supermodel to me right now.
Yeah. Well, again, we have to be a little bit more pointed when we're scheduling our games. We're building some really cool properties with ESPN right now behind the scenes for our schedule this year.
We're back on ESPN Plus.
We are back on ESPN Plus, ESPN2. Yes, sir.
And also we've gotten a notice from the Rugby Network about some changes there. Can you enlighten us on that?
Yeah. So I think just to add to what we're just discussing related to the rugby fan in the U.S., I've only been in the sport for less than a year now, and I really wanted to sit back and learn and shut my mouth and listen and talk to the right people. And I've heard this before, and I've actually found it to be true. Like, sometimes we make it really hard to be a rugby fan in the U.S., and we want to create a platform and an avenue for fans to access our sport a little bit easier. So there's a little bit of a change in strategy when it comes to TRN, and we're working on some really cool things with some really talented people in an effort to create somewhat of a global rugby property that will showcase our sport for our fans. And I think it is going to look a little bit different than what TRN has been in the past as a live sports broadcasting platform. But I think once we kind of unwrap the box here soon, it's going to be an exciting piece of the puzzle to what we're trying to do.
So there'll be a pivot away from live stuff and more featured stuff.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's a little bit fractured. Like if I want to go find a score to Six Nations or the Premiership or Top 14 or World Cup, a lot of times we have to go to several different entities to either find that content or follow along intently. And as you see how digital media has grown and evolved in the last 12 to 24 months, the expectation from the North American sports consumer is they want to see the information now. And if you don't show them now and it's not accessible to them, they're not necessarily going to go look for it. So we want to make sure we put stuff in front of them. It's accessible. We can make it easier to be a rugby fan. And we're going to try that. And we hope that at the end of the day will prove to be very helpful for our league as well.
All right. So before I let you go, you got fellow Canadian Bryan Ray waiting in the virtual green room to come in. And you're a Canadian. And Bryan has been really upset about the MLR potentially determining that Canadian players may or may not be international rather than domestic, which would really literally put tax and tariffs on Canadian players playing in the MLR. Yeah. But I wanted, as a fellow Canadian, what was your take on it?
I think we're in an interesting position from a competition standpoint from our league. And I'll be honest with you, I try and stay out of that as much as I can. Graham Bradbury and Brandon Sparks, who oversee rugby for MLR, do a fantastic job, and they don't need my help. So they don't ask for my opinion, and I keep my opinion to myself because I don't necessarily know. Their job is to create the product. My job is to sell it and monetize it and do all those things. And we'll do them with a bunch of Canadians, and we'll do them with less Canadians if we have to. And, I trust them, and I trust our ownership group to make the best decisions possible. I know that there is a really, really respectful relationship and a affinity for the Canadian market and Rugby Canada. And listen, I don't think the intent is to fracture that relationship. So I'm sure the reasoning is very good on why they're making those decisions related to Canadian players.
All right. Well, Lucas, I appreciate you taking the time, calling in from London, where you're working, you're getting around town and getting around the world looking at rugby. And I think that's great. And thank you for taking the time.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Lucas Reid, the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer of Major League Rugby. We'll be right back with Mr. Pat Clifton with the College Rugby Corner. Stay tuned. This is the Rugby Odds, where an unlikely pundit panel of a wordsmith, a WWE legend, a rugby star, and a supermodel scour the globe, seeking best bets and bad behavior. Are you not entertained? And we're back once again. And once again, we're welcoming in Mr. Pat Clifton of the College Rugby Show in our College Rugby Corner. Pat, good to see you.
Good to see you. I've crawled out of my usual college corner, and you've caught me in my home corner today, and I'm ready to talk some college rugby. We are in the middle of it all, Matt. Great season so far.
It's exciting. It's exciting. All right, so give us a recap of 2 or 3 exciting things that happened this last weekend.
Well, I've got more than that because, that's just me. But let's start on the women's side.
Well, we have 4 minutes in the segment. So.
The Women's Rugby World Cup just ended. The USA are looking for a new head coach. Is the new head coach going to be one of the coaches from this game? Harvard, Dartmouth, entirely possible. Harvard 36-33 over Dartmouth at the death. 18 phases before Tiana Padilla slammed it over for the game-winning try. An incredible game. Harvard, number 1 in NYRA.
Let me interrupt you there right now. You just said 18 phases under the gun.
Yeah.
Which is really a big statement about how much the quality of the women's game has increased and how exciting kind of a brand of rugby they're playing now.
Yeah, it is. A lot of great coaching IP up there in the Ivy League. Congrats to Mel Denham and her team getting a big win over Katie Dowdy in Dartmouth. On the NCR side of things, on Friday Night Rugby, we had Penn State number 4 going at Walsh number 3 and winning 22-19, up 22-5 at the half. Didn't score in the second half. Held a Walsh comeback bid off and won that one 22-19. That was a big one. Over on the men's side, Indiana 24-20 over Kentucky. They played in the Indiana Football Stadium, had a great crowd. 9 points from Tommy Hannon, the fly half. He led the Hoosiers there to the win. And now the Hoosiers are going to go to UCLA, which is one of the big matches we're going to pick here in a little bit. A huge matchup. That's now like Big Ten football. It's Indiana to UCLA. They're going to play in football. We're going to play it in rugby too. So that's a huge matchup coming up this week.
Any more Cuban sightings?
Not yet that I've seen so far on social media, but you'll be the first.
Mark.
St. Bonaventure, number 1, 46-13 over number 8 Kutztown. Huge statement win. Number 2 Brown, 106-0 over Harvard.
That one ruck changed the entire game.
Poor Colton Carriaga there in Cambridge. Hopefully get a bounce back this week. Walsh 30-15 over Davenport. That's a big win. Belmont Abbey 39-17 over Rio Grande. And then Notre Dame 50-12 over Michigan State. The Fighting Irish undefeated since former age grade Springbok Jack Waterhouse has come back from injury, averaging 3 tries a game over that 3-0 stretch. It looks like the best player in college rugby to me.
All right, Pat, that was then. What's in front of us?
Yeah, a huge matchup in the Ivy League on the men's side this week. Last week it was Harvard, Dartmouth on the women. This weekend it is Brown, Dartmouth. Brown, the number 1 team in the country. They look unbeatable. Dartmouth is really good too, though. They've had a great preseason, played some really tough opponents from Canada, and done really well against their American opponents so far. So that's going to be a huge matchup. Dave LaFlamme versus Kyle Sumption, 2 great coaches there. And then Wheeling versus...
Hold on, where is that one?
That one's at Dartmouth. So another huge matchup there at Dartmouth. And then we've got Queens traveling to Wheeling. Both of these teams reeling off of losses, really close losses, and really need a win here in this part of the early part of the season. And Wheeling, Alex Nyamunda also has 9 tries so far this season. That center is looking fantastic. And him and Taku Musanguini looking like one of the best midfield pairs in the country. And then as we talked a little bit about earlier, Indiana going all the way to California to play UCLA. Luke Gross and Harry Bennett. This is, one of our great Eagles against one of our great MLR pros. Harry Bennett, now the head coach out at UCLA. And the Bruins had 2 highly picked players in the MLR draft last year. And this is a rare kind of Big Ten matchup. And it's one that I'm really got my eye on. It's kind of the game of the week for me outside of that Brown-Dartmouth one.
Excellent. And Pat, as per our partners at the Rugby Odds, we got to get some predictions from you. Give me a couple of games.
Look, I got to go Brown. I would love to pick the Big Green. I think it's going to be closer than most people think, but Brown looks like an absolute machine, and I'm not going to pick against it. So I'll take the Brown Bears there to win at Dartmouth. I'm going to take the Wheeling Cardinals to win at home over Queens. This is an absolute pick 'em. It's up to the bounce of the ball, but I like Taku Musanguini as the best player in the game. Zach, they've got some really good great players over on the Queens side too, but I'm going to take Wheeling at home. And then I like UCLA to beat the Indiana Hoosiers over there in Westwood. That's just a really tough road trip, and IU coming off a really big game against Kentucky at home. So I like UCLA to get this one at home, but they're early in their season. That's what the Hoosiers have going for them. They're in mid-season, and they knocked some rust off UCLA. I think this is really their first 15s match of the entire calendar year so far.
All right, well, all of that was great except one glaring error. You did not bring up the UB-RFC, the University at Buffalo, knocking off Columbia 40-17. Man of the match goes to Jeremy Jean Charles. Congratulations. Go Buffalo.
There's no way I'm going to get my tubas checked this week.
No, you're not getting a tubas check this week. No chance. Thank you, Pat Clifton.
Thank you, sir.
That was the College Rugby Corner with the College Rugby Shows. Pat Clifton will be right back after this with Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now. And once again, we're back with Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News / Ray's Rugby. Bryan, where are you?
I'm in Victoria at Starlight Stadium. I've been walking around staring at the ground looking to see if there's any leftover bills from maybe some World Rugby types that might go towards the team that could play out of here. But no luck so far, I'm sad to say.
And for folks like me that didn't know until you told me before we started taping, Victoria is on Vancouver Island, which is not part of Vancouver.
That's correct. You would have to take a ferry or a helicopter or maybe swim to get from Vancouver over to Victoria.
How long is that ferry ride?
I don't know. It's not that long, but
and what's is it the Pacific or is it the Bay? What is it?
No, well, yeah, it's on the ocean. Yeah, there's ocean water surrounding it.
Is it a barf-inducing ferry ride?
I don't think so, but it's still a little bit of an inconvenience.
This is where you're saying or suggesting MLR could have a team, a Canadian team.
I say that because it's the easiest, because this is Rugby Canada's home training ground, and they would have easy access to the stadium and all their training infrastructure here. So that's why it would be one of convenience, not really one of convenience as far as travel.
Convenience is a relative term. I'm in New York, and I got to fly to Vancouver. Hopefully I can get a direct flight, but then I got to bus and ferry, paddle over to Victoria, where you are located.
Well, technically Langford, just outside of Victoria, but yes, yeah, that's
all right. Now that we've wasted basically all the time allotted for this segment on geography, we have to fly through the rest. And the rest is basically the Twitter sphere is a buzz, specifically with angst around the Canadian women and men, despite the fact that the Canadian women were spectacular in the Rugby World Cup, and the men qualified long before any of us, except for you, thought they would for 2027's World Cup. So it's not a great time for Canadian rugby when it should be.
Yeah, instead of celebrating these, we are kind of celebrating these great results, but when we look to the future, there's not a lot being offered to Canadians right now. There's not going to be many in MLR next year. It looks like looks like maybe a reduction over in the England, the Premiership over there. At least maybe we've got some connections in France, so some of the women can just go over and play in their top women's division. So there's that, I guess, on offer. It's not really the same for the men. I don't see a lot of Canadian players going over the top 14, and those who do don't always choose to play for Canada. So, it's just not a great spot to be. There's really no money to build a domestic league, and it's really not feasible to put one together in Canada. You have to work with other people. So, it's a tough situation to be in.
Talking about money, there's also that thing on the Twitter, social media about the $250 million that's allegedly allocated for the North American market. People are getting twisted about the fact that part of that money will go to tier 1 nations playing against each other over here in North America. But that's not really news.
No, we've known that. Alan Gilpin for World Rugby has been very open about that since the moment that investment was announced. But it's just, I think people are just frustrated looking at, these cutbacks to tier 2 rugby and, developing nations that really need the money. And you're looking at this deal. And I mean, even if you're looking at the investment in the U.S., is that really an investment in the U.S. if they're giving a bunch of money to, their buddies, their tier 1 buddies to come over and play a game in Chicago? How much benefit is that to American rugby? I mean, it's nice for the expats who get to go see this game,
Well, a lot of Americans go to see that game too.
Yeah, okay,
but have a great time.
But is that substantially building the rugby market in the U.S.? I don't know. I really don't know. Somebody has the numbers and thinks they do, so they think it's a good investment. But I think there certainly is questions, and questions have to be how much is being paid to those teams. Obviously they got to compensate them if England is playing in the U.S. They got to compensate them for not playing at Twickenham, so that's not going to be cheap.
Now, I got a proposal for you, back to the men and back to the MLR, and I put this out on social media over the weekend. If Canada and World Rugby can't come to terms with each other and figure out an MLR team for 2026, and that's understandable, although right now is the best time to buy in the MLR because it's at its cheapest. What if instead they agreed in a combination of Rugby Canada and World Rugby to pay for the Canadian players in Major League Rugby? What do you take out of that?
Okay, but I don't think that's really the issue or really what the concern is. It seems to me that it's a numbers thing. And, Scott Lawrence obviously wants as many American players as possible playing in MLR. I mean, we understand there's a reduction in teams. So for me, I think it's a numbers thing. And they just decided they don't want those extra spaces going to any other players but U.S. qualified players. So, if that's on the table and World Rugby can just pay a few bucks and get a few Canadians back in there, a few more, a few spots, then great, whatever. But I just don't think that's really what's being pushed here.
Well, it is a numbers game, and I know what Scott's saying, and I know what some of the MLR owners are saying, but it's a numbers game first in terms of cutting costs, right?
But we're talking about, I mean, you're talking about visas, right? An extra 4,000 or 5,000. I mean, an extra 10,000 a team. That's a pretty small number in the grand scheme of things. If we're talking about teams losing $5 million a year, a few $1,000 doesn't really affect their bottom line at all as far as these Canadian guys go. So I just don't buy that.
There are other costs involved in that too. And if you have them and you're housing them and you got local area guys perhaps filling slots, I get that. But if there is no extra cost, it seems like a win-win to me for everybody. Rugby Canada and World Rugby aren't footing the bill for capital calls and all that. They are just paying for those players.
Are you talking about just paying player salaries, or are you talking about
every cost associated with
for
a Canadian
capital
player?
cut? That's a big, a much bigger proposition than just paying some salaries for players. So
every penny associated with a Canadian player paid by Rugby Canada / World Rugby. That's what I'm proposing.
If that's on the table, great. I just don't see it being offered by MLR the way they've been presenting this.
All right, Brian, final quick thought.
Go Jays.
Go Jays. Bryan Ray straying and talking baseball. Wow, things are bad in Canada. And on that note, thanks to Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. Thanks to John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning. Lucas Reid, the CRO of the MLR. And thanks to Pat Clifton on the College Rugby Corner from the College Rugby Show. And thank you for tuning in. Please check out this week's The Rugby Odds. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Sign up for our weekly newsletter. And please join our American Red Cross Blood Donor Team.